Welcome everybody to another roller coaster game by Cramling. Today I played round 8 of the chess Olympiad here in India, and Sweden was facing the team of Israel. I was playing against an international master rated around 2250, so she had 200 points more rating than I had. So this was a very tough matchup, but a very exciting game. I'm going to be telling you all about the game. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the recap. So, my opponent's name was Masha Klinova, and like you can see, she's 2251, and I am. I played the move d4, because, well, I always play the move d4. I love this. This is my favorite, first move. She went d6, which I was expecting. I went knight f3 to stop her from going e5. She went g6. I went c4, I wasn't sure if this was going to become a King's Indian or if she was going to go knight c6 first or something and try to go for e5 early on. I wasn't entirely sure, but she went bishop g7, and after knight c3, okay, here she could still go for knight c6, which she has played a few times, and then d5, knight e5, takes, and this becomes a little bit different. But she went for knight f6, and after e4, we had a King's Indian on the board. Now, I typically play h3 to avoid bishop g4. So this was like a little bit of a different King's Indian than what I do typically, and if she would have gone bishop g4, well, then we would have seen a completely different King's Indian than what I typically play. But she castled, and so now I had time to go for h3. Now, the idea of this move is just to prevent black from being able to go bishop g4, to maybe in some positions be able to go g4 is white, and it's just, to limit the movement of this bishop. This bishop doesn't really have any good squares. I mean, this, obviously no good squares. Because of bishop e6, I can always push d5. Bishop d7 just basically blocks the knight and, the queen and everything. So this bishop becomes a bit of a funny piece in this opening. So she went c5. Both c5 and e5 are the most common ways here for black to play. And because black is basically like getting out their pieces quickly to be able to break the center. So black is building up a break in the center. And now it's time for black to break in the center. So she needs to typically break in one of these two ways, and she decided to go for c5. Now, she was thinking quite a lot in the opening, so I wasn't entirely, sure if she had prepared or not, but she thought for quite a bit. I was playing this very quickly because I've played this position a lot of times. So I went d5 and she went e6. The idea here is to open up the e-file. Now, I went bishop d3 just to develop my bishop. I want a castle, and I also want to have this pawn defended. Now, in some positions, it's sometimes possible for black to go b5 as well. So e6 is not the only idea here. b5, and this becomes sort of like a gambit you take here, but then black can go a6. The idea is that sometimes there's some queen a5 and some knight takes e4. So, b5 is a bit of a gambit. I was a little bit, worried. But, yeah, she went e6, which is the most natural move. Bishop d3. And now she took on d5. Here you can take both with the c-pawn and with the e-pawn, but I decided to go for the e-pawn. This is typically what I play. The plans change a little bit. If you take with the c-pawn, then black is going to, get some queenside space, but, white is going to have a bit more of center. So it changes a little bit. When you take with the e-pawn, now you're stopping black from going b5 in the near future. She went rook e8 check, and I went bishop e3. Now, in this position, bishop h6 is a common move. And you actually sacrifice a pawn here as white. After castles, you actually sacrifice here a pawn because if takes, then you just go something like queen d2, and basically as white you're claiming that your pieces are much more developed, the dark squares are weak, and you're going to be able to get an attack on the king side. You can see that black hasn't developed either the bishop or the knight yet. So I'm typically not really worried about black going for this. I feel like white gets a lot of play, and I'm the kind of player that likes getting a lot of play. I'm an active player. I hate positions where I'm defending. So yeah, I'm just happy if my pieces can move around a lot. So in this position, she went for knight a6, and well, I decided to just castle. If she went knight b4, then I was just thinking that I could just go bishop b1, and I'll be ってkick her out with a3 at some point. So I wasn't necessarily scared about that. But here she went knight c7, and this is pretty common to reroute the knight like this. Although I would say that most people typically go knight d7 and knight e5, but this is also pretty common, and now she was threatening to go b5, because if takes, then she can take with 2 pieces my pawn on d5, and then she's going to be able to exchange her b pawn for my d pawn, and we don't like that because we prefer central pawns over side pawns. So I went a4 to prevent her to stop her from going b5, and now the thing here was that I was a little bit scared about her going like knight a6, because I mean the thing is that when I go a4, then I'm removing the protection of this square forever. There's no a pawn or c pawn that will be able to defend this square. So now she's able to go knight a6 and knight b4 and just like really like get a knight over there and have the knight the rest of the game over there pretty much. So I was a little bit worried about that. I mean, I knew that after knight a6, I could probably just go rook c1, knight b4. I could probably just go bishop b1. And okay, then, I mean, there's not really any attack with the knight over here, but still, like, that's a really good piece. I thought that was her plan. But she went for knight d7 instead, and when she went for knight d7, I thought that this was weird. This felt a bit strange, because, I mean, a lot of times, you know, black goes, like, knight d7, knight e5 immediately, like, with this knight, but now she had been, like, moving around her knight like this, and then she had, like, gone with this knight. And this felt a bit strange, and it really felt like I had to have something here. Because also, I could tell that the dark squares were pretty weak at this moment, and this queen could not really go anywhere. So I was thinking about a bunch of moves here. I was thinking about stuff like bishop g5, and I think that bishop g5 is the move that I should have gone for, because after f6 and bishop h4, then I'm stopping her from going knight e5, because if she goes knight e5 now, I can take, and she cannot take back with this pawn. She'll have to take back with this pawn. And then I will have a protected pass pawn, which will be making me have a great endgame all the time. So I think that this is what I should have gone for. And I actually now, like, I don't remember why I decided to not do it. But I had calculated something that was very forced, and I thought that it led to me having a good position. Now, here I literally calculated for, like, you know, 8 moves straight, and I thought that I would be getting a good position, but I think it was a mistake for me to go for such a forced move, because I ended up not getting a good position. I ended up miscalculating a little bit. So the most logical move here is to go queen d2, and I knew that this was the most logical move, queen d2, and then I was thinking that probably black will go knight e5, and then I will take, and I knew that this was probably, you know, that this was probably a nice position. Like, I thought this was, like, fine. I was thinking maybe black can go f5 here, just so my knight can't go up, and okay, here we're playing this position, and this is, like, fine. This is, like, you know, like a position. But I really just thought that the position that I would end up with was going to be really good. So after knight d7, I went for knight e4. Now, knight e4, it pretty much forces knight e5. I mean, you can go queen e7, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like the queen was going to be good over here on this file, and I also felt like black, the idea of going knight e7 is to go knight e5. So knight e5 was the move, and I had now calculated all this, bishop g5, and I knew that typically in these lines, I really don't want to exchange my dark squared bishop, but I thought that this is an exception. Yeah, I don't know, I thought that I just got a really nice position. This is all very forced. Here she needs to go f6 if she goes for any other move. Then I'll have knight f6 check, and then I'll be able to exchange this knight for this bishop, which is amazing for me, because then her dark squares get very, very weak. So f6 is forced here, and here, I mean, I had calculated bishop f4, bishop h4, but okay, I thought knight takes c5 was good, and I know that this is all very forced, so either this is good or it's bad, you know? And now she needs to take on g5. Any other move is bad, because I'll keep my bishop, and then I'll just have a really good position. So, because she cannot take back with the f pawn here, which is what she typically wants to do. So here I was thinking both knight g4 and knight f3. These are 2 moves that I was thinking about. And I think the knight g4 would have been better, but I was trying to just think about, like, really forced moves, because I don't know, I feel like it's easier calculating, like, really forced moves. But yeah, I think the knight g4 here would have been better. The idea of knight g4 is just basically that my knight is, like, pretty well placed here. If she ever goes h5, this pawn becomes a weakness. And okay, I'll be able at some point, I mean, if her bishop move around or something, I can go knight h6 check. And I'll be able at some point to maybe go queen d2, attack this pawn, and once again if h6, well then h6 might be a weakness, and also g6 becomes a weakness. So this is just like a pretty good square for the knight. So probably should have gone knight g4, but I went knight f3. And here, the reason why I went for this was because I had seen a position which I liked, so I knew that she had to go g4. Any other move is just, terrible for her because she's losing this pawn. She cannot go h6 because, once again, this pawn becomes very weak, so she went g4. And now I didn't want to take here because if takes, then, well, her bishop gets very active, and this defeats the whole purpose of me going h3 in the opening, so I went knight g5. And I had seen h6. The idea was that if g takes h3 here, I wanted to go queen f3. Which I thought was a pretty nice move. And the idea was that I'm threatening now check and, coming in with all the pieces. So I thought that here she pretty much had to go rook f8 to stop me from going queen f7. And then I wanted to go queen g3. And the idea here was that if she goes for a bishop e5 or something, then I can go queen h4. This is what I wanted to do. And I thought that I thought that I had a lot of activity here. I was thinking if queen e7, I have rook fe1. If, h5, this to me felt terrible because this pawn was just going to be so weak. So, I don't know. I thought that this was just like very interesting. And I liked this position. I thought I was very active here. So, I thought that she had to go h6 just for me to avoid getting all this activity, prevent queen f3. So, I had calculated this and... okay, I thought that knight e6, I thought that this position was like totally fine. Which, according to the evil bar, it's not. But my way of thinking was she has to take with the knight over here. If she goes bishop takes e6, pawn takes, knight takes, and I have queen takes g4, and then, this pawn and her whole king is going to fall apart. So she needs to take her with the knight. So she needs to take it with the knight and then pawn takes. Now, I thought that if g takes h3, my plan was to go queen g4 in this position. Now, I was thinking that if bishop takes e6, then I have queen takes g6, and I just thought that this was strong for me. I was thinking that if rook takes e6, then I thought that I could just activate my pieces, my rooks maybe, and I thought that her pawns were going to be very, very weak. But this is probably what she had to go for because, apparently after rook takes e6, there isn't anything. I thought that I had compensation, but apparently there just isn't anything there. So this is what she had to go for, but she took on e6 with the bishop, and then I went h takes g4. I just took back here. Now, here she went queen h4, because she wants to attack my pawn, and she also wants to at some point maybe go bishop e5 and threaten checkmate. Now, I probably should have gone for g3 here. The reason why I didn't do it was because I thought that bishop e2 or g3 transpose, but I really should have gone for g3 here because in my mind I thought that after g3 the scary was for her to go queen h3 and to still attack this pawn. But actually she just needs to go back, and then she can just go back, and then there isn't all of that. And then my bishop is better placed on d3. So bishop e2, here the idea is that she cannot take on g4 because then I have bishop takes g4, and now after rook takes knight, boom, I have a check on d5, and we can see that the light squares are very weak. I'm going to be getting the rook, and I'm winning a lot of material. So her light squares are pretty weak right now. I also thought that after bishop e2, I'm threatening this pawn on d6. So I thought that this was fine. She went rook a d8 here, and I went g3 just to threaten the queen. Now here I thought that if queen h3 or something, then I was just thinking of going bishop f3 and just putting my bishop on this diagonal. Maybe not yet. Maybe go queen d3 first, looking towards this pawn, and then go bishop f3. But that's what I wanted to do. I had also looked at queen d3, and then I had looked at takes on g4, and then I saw that I had knight f6 check. And if bishop takes, I have queen takes g6 check, bishop g7, this is very nice. And there's bishop takes g4, the queen is trapped. So I had looked at this too, so I really liked queen d3 here. So I thought that she was going to go for that, but she went for queen e7. Now here, what I could tell was that all of a sudden my e-file is pretty weak. And I could also tell that she probably wants to go d5 at some point. So I decided to control this d5 square because this pawn on d6 is right now relatively weak. And if I'm able to regroup my pieces, put a knight over here on d5 and just block everything, then, you know, like, I'm going to be playing against her pawns, and her pawns are going to be pretty weak. So I felt that I had to regroup my pieces, and then my knight on e4 was just not good anymore. So knight c3 was played. I played here, and then she went bishop d4. And here, well, this is a really strong move, because now a lot of times she's going to be threatening to take on g3, and I'm not going to be able to take back because of the pin. So here, I was a little bit worried. I was also scared that she was going to be able to go d5 and break through at some point. But I knew that she probably did not want to exchange this knight for her bishop. And I thought that she wanted to keep the bishop here. So I thought that as long as my knight is on c3, she is not going to go d5. So here I went queen c2. Just to be able to just regroup my pieces. I wanted to be able to get my rook in. And I'm also threatening g6 here. So here I actually thought that she was going to go king g7 or something. And then I was planning on going knight b5. And then I thought that this is like fine. I thought that, okay, maybe she has to go bishop f6. But okay, then I'll take on a7. I'll be a pawn up. She's going to have compensation because she has probably d5 here. And okay, like this is not like so clear. She has like the bishop pair and she's going to have a good center. And I'm not sure I want to take back here. I think that this is very scary after bishop takes d5 because my bishop is going to be hanging and, you know, that my light squares are going to be very weak. So I was a bit scared about this, but okay, I thought that, okay, maybe I can manage, maybe with bring a rook in or something. But she went queen g5 here, and now at first I had discarded this move because I thought, okay, knight e4 and then what? But actually I had missed the idea of going queen e5. Now the reason why I went knight e4 was because here she was attacking my pawn. And I was a little bit worried after knight b5. I wasn't sure about how bishop takes g4, knight takes d4, pawn takes, bishop takes, and queen takes. I wasn't sure about how this position is. I thought that maybe this was equal because her pawns are pretty weak, but I was a bit scared of entering this. But I think this might have been the best thing for me to do. I think I should have entered this, just accepted that I'm a pawn down and just tried to fight for activity because her bishop pair was very, very strong. So this might have been the best way for me to play. But yeah, I was pretty low on time here and I was scared of losing a pawn. So I went knight e4. And then she went queen e5 and now all her pieces are very strong. Like her bishop is really strong, her queen is very strong. I cannot go f4, which is my dream because of the pin. So okay, in this position I just realized that I really need to get out of this pin. And so I went king g2. Now here I was thinking, okay, if she takes on g4, then I can take back, and we can see here that the queen and the rook, they're, you know, together, so I can take my knight over here. But I thought that here, I didn't think this was too bad. I was thinking bishop f3, and I thought, okay, rook e7 to defend the pawn, but then I thought rook e1, and I really thought that this was going to be a draw. It's a different colored bishop endgame. Yes, I mean, the rooks are still here, but this pawn is a backwards pawn. This pawn cannot push, so my pawn here is controlling both of these pawns. So I thought that I'd be able to save this to a draw, so I wasn't really that scared of that. But here, she went for d5, which is the best move. And here I was pretty worried because I knew that if c takes d5, this looked super dangerous because the bishop is coming in, the bishop is going to be on this diagonal, my king is on this diagonal. You know, everything is just kind of falling apart, I felt like. I mean, maybe I'm able to defend my knight, but still, like, I mean, I just felt like all her pieces were so active and it's going to be so hard for me to, like, move around. So I decided to go knight c3 and give the c4 pawn. And my idea here was that, well, if she takes the pawn, at least I'm getting the g6 pawn. So I'm getting something for it. I actually thought that she was going to go back with the queen. But the idea is that if she goes queen g7 or something, then I can take on d5. And then I'm going to be able to exchange my knight for a bishop. And her bishop pair is gone. And finally, you know, I can, you know, get my bishop in and get my piece is active. So I wasn't scared about that. So actually here I thought I was fine. I thought that I was like holding on to a position, like barely, but I thought I was holding on to a position. So she took on c4 and I went queen takes g6. I only had a few seconds here on the clock. I was constantly playing with less than a minute. So queen takes g6, queen g7. She needs to exchange, otherwise the pawn on h6 is hanging. So I just took, and then went bishop f3 just to activate my bishop. Now here she went b6 just to defend the pawn, and I'm not sure if this is the right way of playing, but I went a5 just because I wanted to open up the rook file and get my rooks active. Now here she can always like take on c3, And I thought that she might do this. I thought she might take, and go b5, because now these pawns are going to get very, very strong. But my idea here was that, yeah, and now also, like, after bishop c6, this is not possible because of bishop d5 check. Probably in a rook endgame, I'm lost here because my pawns are so weak. So I was actually pretty worried about this. Maybe I can go a6 to try to go rook b5. But I think that this is just a better endgame for her, and I'm really going to have to fight here for the draw. But in this position, she just went rook e7, and then I was able to take, and go rook a6. And I was just attacking this pawn. I wanted to put all her pieces in passive squares. So she went rook b8, and I went rook e1, the idea being that if b5, I can take the bishop. So she went king f8 just to defend the rook. Otherwise, there's a pin here, so maybe I can go knight d5 or something as well. So she went king f8, and here I went rook e2 just to keep my rook active. Maybe it would have been better to go rook e4, but for some reason I was to have rook f4 check. But for some reason I was a little bit scared about, like, putting my rook in this diagonal. So I went rook e2, she went bishop f7. I took here now on e7, king takes e7, and then I went rook a7 check. She went king f8, and then I went rook a8. And here I really thought that if I was able to exchange the rooks, then I really thought that I was going to have, it was going to be easier for me to defend. But actually, it's wrong of me to exchange the rooks. My rook is so much more active than hers that I should not be exchanging the rooks, which was something that I failed to realize. Probably here would have been better to go bishop c6 to stop her from going b5, because, okay, if she goes b5, I can take, she'll take here. But I think that this is defendable. So probably this is a better way for me to play, but I really, in this, like, when I was in time trouble, I really thought that exchanging rooks would make it easier for me, because that would be one piece less to think about. So I went rook a8, and after rook takes and bishop takes, she went for this really tricky move, bishop e8. And with this move, what she's trying to do is that she's trying to play b5. So she's trying to just defend this pawn. She could have gone b5 here immediately, but then after it takes and bishop takes b2, this could have been really strong too, but I have bishop e4, and I'm probably going to be able to defend this, because if she goes c3, well, then I have bishop c2. So, I mean, I'm always worse, because these pawns are so strong, but still, this should be defendable. So she preferred to not give up her b pawn. Now we can see in this position that this is equal pawns, but the thing here is that my king is on this side, this king is on this side, so, you know, I'm worse because my king is further away. If both of our kings were on this side, then I would be better because my pawns would be further away from her king. So the issue here is that her pawns are far away from my king and my pawns are close to her king. So that is the reason why this is worse for me. Otherwise, you know, it would be equal. And also because she has the bishop pair, so her bishops are coordinating really well. A bishop pair is so strong in endgames. So she went bishop e8 here. And I went bishop d5, and this is my move 40. Now, I was actually a little bit scared because I had messed up in my score sheet a little bit, so I was like, did we really do 40 moves? Am I really, like, do I dare to, like, let the clock run down? But yeah, we had done 40 moves. I was pretty happy. So yeah, so bishop d5, my idea here was just that I wanted to basically force her to play b5, and also that if she ever went b4, then this pawn was going to be hanging. So here, she went for b5. Now, in this position, I was thinking for quite a while. I was not sure of how to defend this. I realized that I was just a lot worse here, and I knew that b4 was coming, so I had a few different moves in mind. I was thinking about knight d1, f4, and king f3. So my idea with f4 is just basically to, at some point, exchange these pawns so that she at least does not have this pawn, so that I can sacrifice a piece over here and her not having a pawn that can, like, later win. So just to focus, like, on one side. And also that, you know, if she ever goes bishop g6, I have, like, f5, so she cannot really, like, get into this diagonal. So that is my idea of going f4. My idea of king f3 is, okay, that I want to bring the king closer to where the action is happening, which is the queen side. But I wasn't a big fan of king f3 because I felt like I wanted to go f4 before I went king f3. Because otherwise, I'm basically blocking my f-pawn. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that. And knight d1, well, the idea is just that she wouldn't be able to go b4, because after b4, then I can just take the pawn. But the reason why I pretty early on discarded this move was because I realized that she had bishop g6. Now, if my pawn was on f4, I would have been able to go f5 here, and this would be like no problem. This is her only way. This way is her only way to get to c2 and attack my knight. And if she attacks my knight, I'm losing my pawn. So here I thought that I was just lost, because now if I go back to c3 or whatever, then there is a b4, and if I go knight a4, she has bishop c2, and I will be losing this b pawn, and these pawns are gonna be too far advanced, and I'll just lose this. She's just gonna promote. So I didn't go knight d1 because of that reason. So I thought, okay, let's go ahead and go f4 just to stop her from going f5. In this position, she went king e7 because she didn't want to go b4 yet, because after b4, she was scared that I would have this variation, and after bishop b5, she was scared of knight d6, which is both attacking the bishop and attacking this pawn. So she went king e7 first, and now I went king f3. I was just trying to get my king closer to, where the action is happening. And here, now she went for b4. I did knight e4, and the reason was because if I went somewhere else, I cannot go to a4 because my pawn is hanging. I cannot go to b1 because my pawn is hanging. Okay, I was considering knight e2 as well, but I didn't think that this was that good. So I was thinking of knight d1. I was thinking that she just had bishop a4, and I was really not sure about how this position was. This is probably fine due to knight e3, but this is a move that I missed. The idea being that if c2, I can take, and then I can go bishop e4, and now it's a draw because I'm blocking her pawns from pushing. And now there's no way for her to win this. So knight d1 would have been perhaps a safer way to me to play, but I went knight e4. And the idea here is just basically that, well, I'm threatening to go knight d2. So also, now if she would take my pawn on b2, I'll be able to go bishop takes c4. I'm threatening this pawn as well, so my knight is pretty active. And this I wasn't so scared of, because I thought after something like bishop d4, I thought that after something like knight d2, this was just good for me, because I'm just now ultra blocking her pawn. So I really want her to leave me the light squares, and for me to just be able to block the pawns. And this I thought was to draw. So I wasn't scared of this. But she went here for bishop b5, which is the critical move. Now, in this position, I miscalculated. Here, I need to go knight d2. But I went for g5 instead. I was really just trying to get some counterplay with this pawn, but this is the wrong idea. I had to go knight d2. The reason I didn't do this was because, one, I was very low on time, but two, I was kind of scared of c3, and I miscalculated this. B takes c3, b takes c3, knight b3, and here, for some reason, I really thought that this was losing for me. I thought that after something like bishop a4, I thought that I had to, after something like c2, for some reason I really thought this was losing for me. Like, I was thinking something like bishop e4, knight c1, bishop e4, c4, I cannot take on d4 because then she's going to promote, and I was thinking that after something like knight c1, that she has bishop b2, and here I just thought that I was lost, which I am. But actually in this position, I should just take on c2, and just give basically, my knight for these two pawns, and this is just a draw now. Because, well, I mean, if like this pawn was exchanged, it'll be an ultra draw, but this pawn is so weak, she's never going to be able to like take all my pawns and like still have this pawn. So I failed to like realize this. So I didn't see this, I miscalculated, and I did not go knight d2. So because of that reason. So instead I went g5 in this position. And this was a mistake because after h takes g5, I mean, now I have to go knight d2, but I took back here. And she took on b2, and I was just happy because now all the pawns on this side were traded, so she'll, I'll be able to just like sack a piece for like these pawns, and it's gonna be a draw. But I had just completely miscalculated this. Here I went g6, because what I had missed actually was that I thought that after bishop takes b2, I thought that I could take on c5, and I thought that this was fine then, because if c3, then I can just like go bishop b3, and if b3, then I can just take, and take. But I had missed previously that she has king d6. So this was the move that I missed, and that's why my whole g5 variation doesn't work. I had missed this move when I played g5, and now both of my pieces are under attack, so I cannot defend both, and now I'm just lost because I'm going to be losing one of my pieces. So I cannot take there, and that is the issue here. So she took on b2. I realized that I couldn't take here, and here I thought I was dead lost. So I went g6, and now the idea is that, okay, if this bishop goes somewhere outside of this diagonal, or if she goes c3, then I'm actually winning after g7, which is a bit funny, because now she cannot stop me from making a queen. I'm not sure if I'm winning, but okay, I'll be making a queen first, and this looks very won. Queen will be coming in, etc. So, typically, I mean, the person that makes the queen first wins, typically, not always. So yeah, so she cannot go for that. So that was the idea of g6. Now, in this position, she made a mistake. I think she made the only move that complicated things a little bit. Here I thought she was going to go bishop d4, and I mean, I had no idea of, what to do after this, because same thing, if bishop d4, then if I take on c5, she cannot take here, because then I'll be making a queen, but what she can do is that she can go king d6. And I was calculating all sorts of things here, but nothing worked. I was thinking about something like knight e6, but the issue is that, after takes, and this, she has bishop c6 check, king somewhere, and then there's bishop d5, and, she's stopping me from making a queen, and I'm lost. So I was calculating all sorts of things, and I didn't know what to do. But she went bishop e5 here, which I think is an inaccuracy, because now I can actually go knight takes c5. Because after king d6, I would have king e4, and now this bishop is under threat, and she cannot take the knight and defend the bishop, because then I'll just be taking here. So she cannot take the knight. So here this was a mistake. So I took on c5, and I was actually really happy. And here she actually made a second mistake. They typically say that, you typically don't just make one mistake, you make 2 mistakes in a row. I don't know if that's a saying even, but yeah. I don't know. But here she went c3. And this is a mistake because now it's going to be the moment that she puts her pawns on dark squares, because I have a light squared bishop, it's going to be very easy for me to block the pawns. So here I just went bishop b3, and now I'm just blocking the pawn. And here I was really happy. Now I was kind of unsure about what was going on. So she went king f6. I went bishop c2, defending my pawn. She went bishop e8. And okay, here I made a mistake. I should just go king e2. Just put my king over here. But okay, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I went knight check because I was very low on time. King g7. I went back. So I lost the tempo by not going king e2. Now she took. But I realized that this is still a draw after king e2. Because my knight is in control of the light squares. If my knight was not in control of the light squares, I would be lost. So even here, this is a very instructive endgame. Even here, even if I am 2 pawns down, this is a dead draw. Because, well, she did something like this, king c2. This is a dead draw, no matter what the engine is saying right now. I mean, maybe it's easier to go knight c1, knight b3, whatever. It doesn't matter. This is a dead draw. Because after king c2, king e4, I will forever be able to control these squares. There's no way for her to stop me from going knight a1, knight b3, or knight a5, or knight c5, or knight d4, or knight c1, knight b3. I will forever be able to do this, and she can try anything. So she went, okay, I went knight a1, king here, this. I mean, she was just trying to put the king in, the best position. So there we go. Now we have this. And okay, she was doing stuff like this, but then I just went knight a5. I am forever controlling the b3 and c2 square. If I would move my king, I mean, then I'm pretty much lost. I need to control these 2 squares because I cannot let her advance. If I let her advance, I'm lost. If she's able to exchange the bishop for my knight, I'm lost. I need to just go knight b3, and I was really thinking, is there any way that she can somehow with the bishop block every single square that my knight can go to from b3, but it is impossible for her. It is impossible for her with this bishop to block a5, c5, a1, c1, d4. It is impossible for her. There is no way. So we went back and forth a few times, and then here we just, she offered a draw because this is just a draw. And it's funny because engine is saying that this is winning, but if you put this in table base, you'll see that this is a draw. So yeah, guys, that was the game. It was a very instructive endgame, I thought, and I'm always like really scared when I'm like playing endgames because, well, I mean, especially when you're like down because it's like you need to defend, right? And defending is hard sometimes. But I was really happy that I was able to get a draw against this international master, and actually, this secured us a win in today's match. My mother won. Our board 2-1 in Agris. She won against Dina Belenkaya, the streamer and YouTuber Dina Belenkaya. She beat her, and then I drew, and then our board 4 lost. So we beat Israel, and now we are actually in the top 20 of the Olympiad with 3 rounds to go. So this is going to get very exciting. I mean, we could have an amazing run. This is really like 3 rounds to go and we're top 20. It's absolutely amazing. I'm really happy. So we will see how the future rounds go. The pairings are not out yet for tomorrow. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this recap. I hope you enjoyed the game. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this was instructive for you. I will see you all in the next recap. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye, people. Take care.